Hello everybody, this is Xehanort Kamatazi, and this is going to be over the Watchman Sentinel. Things to note is this is going to be a basic video to help brand new players or people who want at least a little bit better understanding of the class, the spec, etc. This is just simply to help them out. I'll be going over things to note from the discipline path. However, I will not go over everything, so please read it all over so that we will have a better understanding and potentially be able to find stuff that will allow you to find your own rotation as well. Same thing with skillful. I will be going over what I have, but please read over all of the skills or utility points. So that we'll be able to find a better spec that works better for your playstyle. I will, of course, be going over the rotation I have set down here. And I will also be going over some player tips to help you guys out. So to get started, I'll be going over what I have for utility points here. I first have Adamant. You generate 4 focus when you are stunned, immobilized, CC'd in general. Additionally, your Resolute is reduced by, your cooldown for Resolute is reduced by 30 seconds. I have Debilitation, which Blade Barrage immobilizes the target for 30 seconds. I also have Stoic, which increases your damage reduction by 2%. You'll be able to center when attacked. And the centering building effect cannot occur more than once every 1.5 seconds. A good substitution, if there's one you don't like there, will be Trailblazer. Cyclone Slash deals 25% more damage. You could also do Jedi Enforcer, where damage dealt by Rebuke will be increased by 15% and increases its duration by 4 seconds. Under Masterful, I have Ardor, which Transcendence no longer requires or consumes centering, but it will go on cooldown for 30 seconds when activated. I personally like this because it takes away the centering that's needed to normally activate it, and you can instead use the centering to use Zen, which is what you're going to be using it most on. Anyway, Transcendence you could then use with 30-second cooldown as a defensive ability instead of relying on either Transcendence or Zen. I also have Pulse, which reduces the cooldown for stasis by 15 seconds. This is my own personal preference, as I use for stasis for dueling to get the edge if I get into a rough fight, or just PvP purposes in general. PvP uses in general. Good substitution will be defensive role here, which reduces damage taken from area effects by 30% and increases your internal and elemental damage reduction by 3% as well. Under Heroic, I use Expunging Camouflage, which removes all cleansable effects when you activate it. Activate Force Camo. And then I also use Enduring, which increases duration of Guarded by the Force by 2 seconds and reduces its cooldown by 30 seconds. Personally, these are the only 2 I use here. I didn't see anything that I personally liked for under the Heroic as a substitution. Under Legendary, I personally use Zealous Ward, which activating Saber Ward grants immunity to stun, sleep, lift, and incapacitating effects for 6 seconds. And getting attacked while Saber Ward is active heals you for 3% of your maximum health, and the healing effect can occur more than once every second. However, you can substitute that with Zealous Judgment. Dispatch refunds 2 focus when used on a target affected by your Pacify, and can be used on any target affected by your Pacify, regardless of remaining health. Additionally, activating Pacify grants Zealous Judgment, increasing your force and tech resistance by 75% for 6 seconds. And then the last one you could use, which I'm not seeing here. Oh, wrong one. It would be Inspired Focus. Inspired Focus allows your inspiration to generate 12 focus when activated, and you heal for 1% of your max health whenever you activate an ability that consumes focus. Now, for the basic rotation, first I use Force Leap, followed by Zealous Strike, Cauterize, Force Melt, Overload Saber, followed by Force Sweep, which Force Sweep will spread your burning effects from the main target onto others, followed by Blade Barrage and Blade Storm, and then Merciless Slash. I will only use Twin Saber Throw when it is procced or glowing around it. I'll show you the rotation here in just a sec, as I forgot one step. Things to note from the discipline path. Things to know from the discipline path: your Force Sweep deals 30% increased damage to targets that are burnt, and spreads the Cauterize and Force Melt burns to other targets. Merciless Slash makes targets assailable for 45 seconds, which increases the element and internal damage by 7% that the target takes. Burn effects will have a 20% chance to proc your Twin Saber Throw, which will increase the damage by 100%, so doubling the damage. Those are the only 3 main things I saw to know. Anyway, as I said, for the rotation, I start with Force Leap here, followed by Zealous Strike, Cauterize, Force Melt, Overload Saber, Force Sweep, Blade Barrage, Twin Saber's proc, Blade Storm, Merciless Slash, and then repeat. Rather basic, but straightforward, and you can just generally keep going unless you move a little quick and you don't allow the rest of them to your abilities to finish the cooldowns. But it's generally straightforward. For player tips, we'll be under Legacy, which on my screen I'll be under Global Unlocks and then Other. Here, I recommend at least one of your characters to be fully attuned to the light side to unlock Unity. Unity is essentially another defensive ability as long as your companion is out. And what it does is you will have a reduced, you'll have a 50% reduced damage intake while you and your companion are while your companion is active, and you click on it. For as you can see, I'm on my personal starship. I personally recommend, if you're going to use any ship unlocks, is to get the Reaper Droid, Operations Training Dummy, and Warzone Training Dummy. They're actually, the personal training dummies are fantastic. So that way you're not essentially fighting other players to use a training dummy on the on the fleet. So you're in your own personal area. You can check your damage, your taking ability, or even your heals before you go into the operation or war zone. Its default is set for damage, but with the repair droid, you'll be able to purchase stuff to change it to where you're checking your tank ability or your heal ability as well. Under convenience, I recommend getting the Legacy Fleet Pass, Legacy Travel, and your personal starship improvement all the way maxed out at 3, because that will allow you to use quick travel, your emergency fleet pass, as well as your personal starship transport continuously, because you will have no cooldown whatsoever. I recommend getting tactical markers in case you end up becoming a flashpoint leader or operation leader for your guild. You'll be able to mark out where each role is going to be at before the boss fight, and hope that it runs a lot smoother. And improvement mounting, I personally find addicting and rather fun because it allows you to mount while moving. And just that 2 extra seconds between having to stop to mount up and then continue moving again versus just continuous movement. Yeah, I personally just find it addicting to have. For character perks, for advancement, I recommend getting whatever you end up you doing more for leveling, whether it be class missions, war zones, flashpoints. I recommend getting what you tend to be doing the most while leveling up. Exploration, I find to go perfect with hand in hand for class missions. Under companion, I personally recommend getting Legacy of Altruism maxed out, so that way you're influence with your companions from companion gifts will be increased by a total of 30%. And I also recommend getting the Legacy of Promptness maxed out, because you'll be able to provide giving your it reduces the time it takes to give your companions the gifts by a total of 60%. And that's taking from the 3 seconds to roughly 3 seconds to give the gifts to your companion, down to about 1.5, 1.6 per gift. So that's actually a huge cut in time it takes to give the companions gifts, especially if you have a full stack. From travel, if you're on your main and you're getting ready to make an alt, you can never go wrong by sending your alt a bunch of credits to get maxed out for the speed of piloting. In my opinion. I also recommend getting the personal starship, especially if you're on an alt that's leveling up through the class story. If, let's say, you want to personally go out to the flashpoint, or you want to go to the planet to do the side mission, heroic missions for side planets, I personally recommend getting the priority transport straight to them, like CZ-198 or Black Hole. Just because I personally never remember where they're at on the galactic map. but that's just a personal preference. Under convenience, I do recommend getting everything you can here at some point. But the main two, when you're first starting out and you're leveling up, I personally recommend getting Field Reaper Droid. Everybody loves them for operations, flashpoints, and questing, because you can sell to the droid to free up your backspace, and you are able to repair your armor as well. I also recommend getting the Field Respec. That way you don't have to keep going to the fleet to respec if you don't like your spec or you want to play around with a different one. Especially useful in flashpoints, maybe ops, in case you have to switch to a different role. Like, let's say you're on a Sork for a lightning spec and your healer drops out. Field respec allows you to go from the damage spec into the healer role, so your group can keep going. Same thing if you're going from DPS role and you can go to tank. Anyway, that's all I had for you guys for today. I wish you guys luck in the Watchman Sentinel role, and so hope to see you in game.